Hello, Steeler Nation, and welcome to your SteelerNation.com podcast. I'm your host, G.Stryker, and today we take an inside look at Steelers news with professional sports writer from Homistek.com, Hunter Homistek. Hunter, how you been, man?
Wonderful, dude. Thanks for the intro, as always. It's cool to be back. Cool to be repping my own thing now with Homistek.com. So
Yeah.
Appreciate the new intro there. It sounded good.
And everybody on the vidcast now, you can see it right there in his background, HOMISTEK.com. He's doing a lot of freelance writing now, and check out his site. He's got a lot of cool stuff up there. And what type of things are you following right now, Hunter?
Man, it's been a scramble, honestly, since leaving DK Pittsburgh Sports and starting my own thing. So Right now, I've kind of been following just building my website, getting everything rolling and things of that nature. Been diving into my hobbies a little more with the time off, getting back to cooking and music and a lot of other things that I like. So it's been a bit of a decompression while at the same time kind of recharging for this new version of me and my site and my work and everything. So really exciting time, honestly, man.
That's great. That's great, man. And I guess now we can get into some Steeler news, man. It's been a while since we talk. Most of the people that are familiar with the podcast, obviously, when Hunter and I get together, we can talk about anything ad nauseum for long amounts of time. So The off season, this is the perfect time for us to get together and just have a lot of fun about Steeler news. And first off today, we just got a tweet in from Diontae Johnson stating he is now a hefty 191.2. He's packed on some pounds a la AB did early in his career. Hunter, what do you have to say about that?
I love to see this, man, especially in an off season like this where they couldn't get together. Nothing was mandated. There was no strength and conditioning coordinator breathing down his neck, telling him to put on weight. I'm sure they exchanged messages and things of that nature, but it was up to him. What I love about this is that it shows the will to do that. It shows that Diontae wanted to do this on his own, showed the initiative to get it done, recognized that it needed to happen too. He was obviously one of the smaller receivers on the Steelers for sure, and in the NFL at large. He's on the smaller side that you'd want to see a wide receiver. And while he has a lot of attributes that I think excite both of us, we've talked about Diontae a lot. There's a lot to love about Diontae. He definitely, if there was one knock on him his rookie season, was that he was a little prone to injuries and getting nicked up here and there.
Yeah.
And it made you wonder if that smaller frame would be able to take the abuse of an NFL career. So seeing him put on weight and make an effort to bulk up and bolster that area, that deficiency, it's a really good look from him going into year two.
And I agree. And I think it's, you take into another perspective. I remember the Steelers always drafted those short, fast receivers, the Dree Archers, the Chris Rainey's at 150 to 160 range, and those guys just can't hold up in the NFL at that weight. Now, I've also got a concern about Hollywood Brown, who's similar weight coming into the lead in the 170s, low 170s, high 160s. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if he starts bulking up as well, a la his cousin, since he works out with his cousin. I'm sure they're going to start talking about that. But he was nicked up a lot last year as well and kind of fell behind, which is why I think Diontae Johnson, didn't he lead all rookies in receiving last year for, was it
receptions?
Yards?
Receptions. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So hopefully he can definitely build on that and have a bigger frame to pack that, the new receptions onto. So
sure.
we also got some news from Big Ben over at the Trib. It was, let me bring up this article quick. Oh, it's on my phone. My gosh, I'm all multimedia it up here. We got YouTube, we got Zoom, we got the phone here on the Trib. So it was an article by Joe Rutter today, and it just came out at 5:40, which is just a few hours ago. And he mentioned that quarterback Ben Roethlisberger admits past addictions to alcohol and pornography. And this was a really, really interesting article going through and just touching base on the fact that he kind of fell away from religion in college, and all the early success in the NFL kind of took him away from religion. He has since refound religion within the past 3 years. I think he's been baptized again, and he's very happy with he is spiritually and trying to continue to grow each day spiritually, which is a great thing for Steelers fans to listen to and hear about, because his early part of his career was marred with a lot of off-season problems and problems with alcohol and those types of things. So to me, it's a big positive that he's able to admit these types of things, and it's wonderful as a Steeler fan being able to hear that he's turning himself a lot around. Also, making sure to point to his lovely wife being a big onus for him returning to spirituality as well. So that's a big, big plus for us Ben fans.
It is, and it's huge. I love anytime you hear about a human recognizing their deficiencies. You know, we just talked about Deontay in a physical sense, but sometimes in that mental, spiritual sense, it's just as important to grow and understand where you're weak and where you need to get better. What I think this is from Ben, especially, that shouldn't get discredited, is him stepping up as a leader. That's a huge example to the rest of the guys. For your franchise quarterback to come out and admit alcohol and pornography addiction in an interview, that's huge, man. You know how guarded these NFL players can be with their issues, especially. Ben's a guy who doesn't do a lot of media in general. So for him to come out and say this is a huge step for him. And I'm sure the other guys in that locker room are taking note of that and being like, that's our guy. Like, he's stepping out. He's doing that, showing us, hey, it's okay to address this and grow and get better. We all have issues. We all have our faults. And I'm not afraid to address mine. You guys shouldn't be afraid to address yours and step them up and build on them. So I love seeing that on that level from Ben. The overall theme there that he talked about, I think, has been present for a long time. So it's not a huge shocker that he has matured to Steelers Nation. I think any Steelers fan will understand that sentiment well. So it wasn't a hugely shocking interview, but to hear it laid out in that plane of terms and it was awesome to hear, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a great moment for all of us to kind of have a reason to rally behind Ben, because I know we've discussed this in the past as well, because every time Ben even comes out with something positive, it tends to be taken by a negative skew by certain Steeler writers, certain national writers. I don't know if it's a general bias over his past problems, but getting through them and trying to better himself could be the only, the best possible scenario that could have occurred from all of these prior negative situations. So moving on to the Steelers virtual off season, we've got a neat little video that they threw up discussing pretty much what's going on during the off season, leading with Coach Tomlin. Have you had a chance to see that video over at Steelers.com?
I honestly haven't seen the video yet, so I'm anxious to see this myself.
Okay, well, I'm gonna throw it up. We're gonna talk over it because I've got my bullet points, and we're not going to be able to hear the audio. Steeler Nation, if you want to hear it, please go to Steeler Nation. Please go to Steelers.com, and you'll be able to watch the videos right there. It's called the Steelers Virtual Offseason is the name of the video, and we do have an article for that as well. And let me just make sure. Yeah, Michael Stifler on our site wrote the inside look at the Steelers virtual offseason, which also has a link to this video as well.
Nice. I'm just happy you guys have a Stifler on the site. Really? That's awesome.
Dude, you don't know how happy a Striker was to get a Stifler with him. It's awesome. Can't wait to get him on the podcast. He'll be coming up soon.
The Striker and Stifler show? Come on. Beautiful.
99.1 Striker and Stifler in the morning.
Exactly. Oh, my God.
So here you have Coach Tomlin talking to the team, basically making sure that everybody's got to be in shape was first and foremost what he's the biggest thing that he's trying to tell everyone is like, this is on you. This is the new reality that we live in with COVID-19 and the coronavirus. So you've got to put in your own time, and you got to make sure that when you show up here, you're ready to work so we can just move forward with what we need to do to win football games. So I thought that was a pretty impactful statement to start off with, especially since he's doing a Zoom call with like 100 people on it, and it's just you and me on ours.
Yeah, exactly, man. This is really cool to see, and you see Zach Banner all leaned out there, man. He's looking good too. That's cool to see.
Yeah, Zach. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love seeing this. I love that they've given us a glimpse behind the curtain, so to speak, because again, kind of like talking about Ben being reserved. Pro athletes are very reserved in their preparation in general, so it's cool to finally get a little peek behind the curtain and see some of this.
Yeah, it really is. And Zach, what he's doing in the morning at 6 a.m., he's showing up with Matt Filer and actually his 21-year-old brother, and they go out and they hit the bags, and they do some blocking drills, and they show some of it here too. So it's pretty big that he's got his 21-year-old brother out there, mixing it up with the adults and the professionals. But he seems to be hanging in there. Zach also was big. He's big on nutrition, and the one thing when I interviewed him earlier too, his normal body weight is 400, over 400 plus. So for him to stay like a svelte 360, he's got to watch his weight. and he's got to watch what he eats. And the biggest thing for him was sugar. He's like, sugar, sugar, sugar. I understand sugar is the biggest thing that keeps weight off of me. So anybody else there trying to lose weight, cut your sugar completely. No cheat.
Absolutely.
He's like, even a cheat day with sugar, it ruins it. You can't even, you just give it up. Just give it up if you're trying to lose weight for a few years.
Yeah, no, that's 100% valid, man. I did a keto diet a couple years ago. It's basically no carbs and no sugar. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh,
crazy how fast you can lose weight doing that kind of thing. Obviously, in these quarantine
and there's
times,
his brother and him going at it.
Yeah.
I know. I put on my COVID-19 as
no
well.
doubt.
So
no doubt.
I'm definitely
look at him.
the scales.
He looks great. This is awesome to see. You can see it in his face a lot, even.
Yeah. It's really huge. And he also, his pastime, he loves playing FIFA online. So he was ranked in the top 519, FIFA 19, and he's learning the new controls for 20, but he's working to get ranked now.
That's hilarious.
So that's the one thing you like to do in the off season.
He had a FIFA belt in his locker all year last year. He had like the FIFA championship belt at his locker. So that's great. Yeah,
nobody on the team is going to be able to take it from him if he's ranked worldwide.
No, that's a totally different level.
Yeah, especially like 500. That's an international game. Like everybody plays FIFA in this world.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about Eric. You see, he's got his jugs machine. So the big thing for him was he moved from Indianapolis to Houston, and he purchased a ton of workout equipment. He's never had to do this before in the past because he was always able to use team facilities and go to the gym. But now, since he's stuck at home with COVID, he's bought so much workout equipment. He's bought boxing equipment. He bought that great multi-use and multi-fire jugs machine. So he's really like taking it upon himself to better himself. And he really loves how the players on the Steelers are also helping him out prepare for the season. A lot of times it's a dog-eat-dog world depending on what your team you're on. But he said with the Steelers, they're nothing but helpful, helping him out with the playbook and helping him prepare to be the best that he can be. So that's huge and that's why a lot of people really like the Steelers organization. It can be different than some other cutthroat organizations depending on who your coach is.
Sure. That aligns perfectly too with everything we heard from the free agents and rookies last year. Because when I was covering, rookie OTAs and training camp and everything, of course, those are questions that come up. All the new guys were always like, it's unreal how helpful everybody is. There's no ego. And Minka Fitzpatrick actually said it best. He said something like, if you do have an ego, they work that out of you quickly. Like basically we put that to an end quickly because there's just no space for that in this locker room. So, and Ebron, man, I cannot wait to actually meet this guy this year and see what he's got because I've loved his attitude through everything, his social presence, his just demeanor. I really like what I see. It reminds me of what I saw from Steven Nelson a lot last year in that he truly just believes in himself and he has that kind of confidence that comes from that.
Yeah.
Where it's not necessarily boasting, but it's this where you just believe in yourself to this degree and you just know it's going to pay out. Speak of the devil.
I know. It's just that was my segue. You ruined my segue.
Sorry. Let's talk about Steven Nelson because he deserves the love.
Oh yeah. Steven Nelson as well. And it was great that you got to mention that because he came on last year, like you're saying the same things, but now with him, he was working out at home a lot, doing a lot of weird workouts because he couldn't get to the gym. Like we see here, it's like, it doesn't look like it works out much, but it's still pretty impactful. He's like meeting with his trainer on Zoom. But now since the gyms have opened up, he's able to go over and hit the gyms. And he's one of those players that really takes advantage of nutrition. So he's got a personal chef / nutritionist that prepares all of his meals to make sure he's getting the appropriate amounts of nutrients and ratios for whatever he's trying to do, build muscle, maintain endurance or what have you. And there's certain times too where he's like, well, I want to be vegan this week. And other times I want to eat meat, but he'll switch it up. He'll go back and forth, but he's got a nutritionist chef that prepares all of his meals and has it all set up for him in the week and does shakes as well. I think he has like a more of like a carrot shake in the morning and then like a green shake in the afternoon to maintain his energy.
Dude, that's so awesome. And it doesn't surprise me at all, just knowing him and getting to talk to him a lot last year. That Steven Nelson is honestly, he's on a different level. And I don't necessarily mean as an athlete. He's very, obviously, an incredible cornerback as well. But he's on a different level mentally than most guys. The way he takes care of himself and his mind is truly on a different level. He's really, I highly recommend anybody who doesn't follow Steven Nelson or really read much about him, like really follow this guy, because I'm telling you, he's doing some really, really cool stuff, both mentally and physically.
And that's, and it's cool too, because they started talking about their pastimes. Ebron was saying he wants to be he would be a professional golfer. He loves golf so much that, he just wants to go out there. And there's Chef Kyle. This is the meal prep guy for Nelson. That I was talking to you about earlier. But he's like, if I could do golf professionally, I would. Obviously, I'm a football player now, but
yeah,
I'm sure a lot of NFLers would like to do golf professionally too afterward.
Yeah, he'll have some time when it's all said and done. Golf's not going anywhere.
No. And then also it was Nelson said his pastime's fishing. He loves going out, hitting the lakes, and he's done it all. He's done river, lakes, saltwater fishing. And he loves all of it. So it relaxes him. It kind of centers him and helps him to get mentally prepared and focused then on football. So that's kind of a neat, way you got to find things, I think, also to relax you, because just keep pushing all the time really makes it difficult to, you have to create some mental balance. Otherwise you might get burned out. And
absolutely. And you've heard it, all three that we've talked about their hobbies, fishing, golfing, playing FIFA, they're all the same in the same vein. It's about unplugging and just, removing yourself from the grind of being a pro NFL player.
Yeah.
Obviously golf's a little physical, and so is fishing. FIFA less so, but maybe if you're real, I don't know, maybe to get ranked 500th, you have to.
Yeah, no, he's pretty intense about it. You should see when he wins a game. He's like jumps up in the air, like, ah!
I'm sure
he's competitive. We all know Zach Banner's competitive.
Yeah, honestly, these dudes are so athletic. Like if Ebron wanted to be a pro golfer and really dedicated himself to that, I'm sure he could. Yeah, I have no doubt. Yeah.
Especially with that length, that you get that swing and the length. I mean, that ball's going.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go.
Now he's going to the FIFA. Yeah, so that's great. It's great to hear a little bit about what the Steelers are up to here in the offseason, because we're all kind of stuck inside Steeler Nation. I'm not, some of the states in the South are a little bit more open than the states up here in the North, but a lot of the NFL and our NFLers that I've been interviewing and talking with, and I know you as well too, Hunter, a lot of everybody's staying at home and only going out to certain locations at certain times, and it's going to be interesting to see how the NFL is going to open up. I know there was another report that just came out today that 2 Steelers tested positive for COVID. Mm-hmm. And that was evidently an old report. So they are, from what I'm gleaning from this, they currently aren't positive anymore, and they've returned to practice. And I guess they weren't in the building when they were positive, so no issues there.
Yeah, so, it's not unheard of. I mean, the Penguins had the same thing happen. A lot of sports teams have had this happen, and it's going to happen whenever you've got these kind of numbers. The data simply says there's going to be some pro athletes that get it. So it's really, it's a story with a great headline, but it's kind of a non-story. Honestly, they took care of it. It's all under control. There's no reason to think it's going to be anything bigger than that.
Yeah. So moving on from there, there's something that I am going to start an article on that I've been working on here for a bit. And, we're talking about the wide receivers, and kind of gotten talking on Steeler Nation about, who are the wide receivers going to be this year? Like basically, essentially, who is or more specifically, who's going to be the 5th wide receiver? And I think one of our Steeler Nation writers, FB3, he was the one to put up the post initially, and I kind of took and ran with it a little bit, because I get insane about these kind of things, because I love the wide receivers. That's like my favorite aspect of the game. But
sure.
I mean, Hunter, you and I obviously know the top 4, they're locks. So you got, DJ last year, Deontay Johnson having a great year, Juju having a great year. I mean, he's the number 1 guy no matter what. When we're in the 1 wide receiver sets, 2 wide receiver sets, he's on the field. James Washington, I think, separated himself last year, showing he has first dibs to that Z receiver position, and he's got that locked down. And then they go and draft Claypool, and Claypool was the most interesting aspect of this draft in a couple situations here, Hunter. And I see him as not the reason why the Steelers drafted him wasn't just because he is a red zone threat. He can immediately come in as that 4th wide receiver, give you a size mismatch against smaller corners, but he is a monster on special teams. He's literally on every coverage team because of his speed, and every blocking team because of his size that Notre Dame had. So he's out there on field goal team. He's out there on kick return team. He's out there on kick off team. punting team, punt return team, extra points. He was doing it all last year. So that was a position that normally fell on the Steelers' fifth receiver.
Yep.
When we had Johnny Holton last year doing it, and every once in a while he'd get on the field. And then the year before that, like we had Darius Hayward-Bay as well, but progressively he started getting less and less impactful as a receiver and was very impactful in special teams. But now we have, for the first time, an impactful special teamers who's already going to be locked in as the fourth receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to create a really interesting shift now for who's going to be the number 5, and having somebody that normally would have been the fifth receiver being that big as an impact player on special teams. Does that mean that the Steelers only keep 5 receivers this year?
I can't see that, man. I don't know. They always keep 6, and I just see them still carrying 6 through the season. But Claypool, like you said, I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, that's ridiculous. You're not going to spend your top draft pick, of course, round 2, but still their top draft pick. You're not going to spend your top draft pick on a special teamer." But it's like, man, you clearly didn't watch the tape at Notre Dame to see how good he is on special teams. B, everything Tomlin and Colbert had to say about him after the draft was, we fully intend to use this guy on special teams because we know he's a beast there. And C, all these virtual workouts, all the COVID shortened weirdness of this is going to make it easier for him to step into special teams than onto the field as a receiver. So I think there's a lot of things working in the favor of Chase Claypool is definitely going to be a special teamer this year and probably going to be really good at it. And that's a perfect way to keep him on the active roster, keep him involved, get him some reps here and there at receiver, but don't put the weight of the world on his shoulders right away as a rookie. So I think it's going to be perfect. Honestly, the perfect situation for him. There's no reason at all to rush anything with him. You talk about the other 3 receivers in front of him, pretty much no worries there in my mind. You know those guys are going to step up and do their job. Yeah. I believe in Juju maybe more than a lot of people do. I know injuries.
Oh, he's going to be fine. He was playing injured last year. I don't have any problems with him. He's so big and so.
And now that situation, come on, and no receiver was good last year. Even Deontay and James Washington, set career highs and everything. Yeah. But it's not like any of them put up stats that you would be totally satisfied with from a number 1 receiver. It was just better in comparison. So it really wasn't great, but they're all in for a better year with Ben and Claypool. And then as far as the 5th goes, are we making predictions or what?
We're moving on. And here's the other reason why I thought the Steelers might go with just 5 receivers. It's because of drafting Eric Ebron, because Eric Ebron he wasn't brought to the team to be the starting tight end. We have a starting tight end. It's Vance McDonald, because he can do it all. He's the best run blocker on our team at the tight end spot. That's definitely saying something, even getting Ebron in the mix. But to me, I don't think it's even close, but receiving wise, Ebron is a receiving tight end. Yeah. So in the 2 tight end sets, we're looking to pass, or we can look to pass or do it out of two tight end sets with much more aplomb than we could last year with whoever was number 2 trying to run past. Oh, the guy we brought in from Seattle, the guy, what was his name?
Nick Vanette.
Vanette, yeah, it's like the other V guy. Yeah, Vanette was having some problems, getting open consistently, and so made for a tough situation. But with Ebron now, when you're bringing him onto the field, and a lot of times they will swap him and put him out wide, so you might see situations where you'll have Juju and Ebron on the left, and you'll put Ebron wide where Juju likes playing the big slot anyway, and now you got a small corner on Ebron.
Yep.
Unless they try to switch and they get caught up on the switch when they run the pass. So that's going to take some snaps away from what normally would be your 5th receiver and going into 5 wide receiver sets. So for me, that's why I was like, maybe they are only going to go with 5 this year, but let's at least start talking about who the candidates would be for the 5 receiver sets. Mm-hmm. One other quick point to note is I always rate a receiver on their ability to play special teams for making the teams moving down, because like we're saying, starters usually don't play special teams unless you're a good returner. DJ, I think, is going to be the starting punt returner again this year. I think he's going to be from square one. I'd be happy if he did kick return also, but he hasn't in the past. Who knows if he will? We know Juju stepped in there a few times. Normally, he's not doing any special teams as well, and Washington can't play special teams. So we definitely have Juju and Washington probably aren't playing any special teams whatsoever. Claypool's going to be playing all of them as much as they can give him, honestly. And now we've got the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players that may be on this team for different reasons. Now, one of the guys that I liked initially, well, we'll go back with last year who was on the team. Kane. he came in, subbed in as the Z receiver last year, showed a lot of ability to get an open deep, drawing some pass interference, smart around the football, smart with his body positioning, but he gives 0 special team snaps. Switzer is the opposite. Switzer didn't have barely any production on the field whatsoever as a receiver, was on the team, but he played basically every single special teams. So he was playing the inside stuff on the blocking teams and for the running down the field teams, playing it more toward the inside. So that was a lot of his ability to stick with the team. So the other 3 players that we have that are kind of like maybes are Quadri Henderson, who is more like he can play any position. He's an X receiver. He can play slot. He can get open deep, and he's a punt and kick returner, and did so with the Giants 2 years ago. Amara Darboh is another guy that's really interesting because he's another one of those Z-type receivers, can get open deep as a big body guy, but he plays all the coverage and blocking teams. So that guy has a chance of making the team. And then you have the other guy, Anthony Johnson. And Anthony Johnson is another deep threat, but he can play kind of the slot as well. He's not the tallest guy. He's really quick, good short area quickness, but he's only had 1 kick return in his career, and that was in college in 2007. So he essentially has no experience whatsoever in special teams. So now Quadri Henderson, Deion Kane, Switzer, Darboh, AJ, Anthony Johnson. Who do you see, Hunter?
I like Deion Kane first at 5. I think he's the most of a lock out of those. I like what I saw from him on the field and just around the locker room. He seemed to fit in well with everybody. He kind of made a seamless transition. People kind of forget they brought him in as kind of a dart throw mid-season. He just fit in and got it. So I'm excited to see what happens with him with another year of experience under his belt and a year of knowing the system under his belt. I think he can be not just like, you're our 5th receiver, but like he can actually contribute a little bit. I think he's got something to show. And then the 6th, which is going to make everybody super happy, is Switzer to me. Man, I think Switzer is like the most unfairly criticized dude on the Steelers. I understand he's like the whipping post for everybody. He's fun to make fun of and everything, I guess. But he was injured all year. Like, he was literally injured all year. You can't judge a dude who's trying to play injured, trying to play through injuries, who's obviously not at his best. He's not a bad player. He's really not bad at all. He's fundamentally sound. He usually doesn't make the mistakes. And he was injured. I don't know how else to put it. He was injured. You're judging an injured dude. The year before, I think he was 7th in net punt returns, 7th in the league. It's not like he's not a bad football player, and you don't make it in the NFL and make a career if you're bad. So the fact that he's hanging around should tell you something. And I know this is kind of the however you want to put it. Ben loves him, and everybody knows Ben loves him. Ben works with him. In that video, it was Juju, Connor, and Switzer catching footballs from Ben. So Ben loves the dude, and that means a lot. And I just think Switzer has a place on that team. He understands the system. He understands the locker room. He understands what's needed to be a Pittsburgh Steeler and to be a part of that team. I think he's easily the 6th over those other guys. I mean, Quadri Henderson's the one, especially being he went to college at Pitt. He's got a lot of local appeal. You know, everybody wants to root for him, and I understand he's a great kick and punt returner. We saw that in college as well. But I just don't see him. He's already been with the team in spurts and never really stuck. I just don't see it from him. Switzer just seems to have a leg up in understanding what's needed, what's expected of a professional football player. If one of the other 3 breaks through, that's great. That simply means they outperform Switzer. But in my mind, that's what it's going to have to be. It's not going to be like, oh, we don't really like Switzer. They're going to have to definitively outplay Switzer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right about that. And that is the one player that I could see conceivably giving Deion Kane and Switzer a run for their money, and that is Quadri Henderson. And the reason is because they brought him back multiple times. I mean, he went to the Patriots for a bit. He was with the Giants for a bit, and the Steelers made it a point to bring him back because they like what he brings to the table. And I know that at least from watching him, he's able to play all 3 wide receiver positions across the line. Switzer's strictly a wide receiver. He's a slot. And Kane is strictly a Z receiver. He's an outside guy going for the deep ball. So that's normally where their impact's going to stay. But, I mean, you can have Quadri line up in the slot. You can have Quadri take the number of be a possession receiver at the X, like the way DJ is, the way AB was, the way Hines Ward was in the same spot. I mean, the Steelers love their X receivers to make sure they keep coming down with footballs.
Yeah.
So, Quadri does have that type of ability. He just has to prove it. And I know it's going to be a lot tougher on this shortened COVID season, because right now you got to give a leg up to Kane and Switz, because they've been on the team. They've been training with them. They know the playbook. No, Quadri's been in a couple seasons. He's been practice squatted for a year with us as well. So he does know the playbook to an extent, but like we're saying, he really has to break out to earn that next spot.
Yeah, man. And just to play devil's advocate real quick, I don't know that I even necessarily believe this, but just something to think about is, you mentioned Henderson's versatility. I could say that that's going to work against him, because he's not elite at any one thing. Kane is elite at just stretching the field and going deep. He does that extremely well. Ryan Switzer is okay. He's maybe not an elite slot receiver, but he's got that down, and that is definitely his thing. They can trust him in that role, and they can understand, okay, Switz got the slot down. Quadri is like okay at all of them. And I don't know if they would rather just have, because Juju's versatile, Deontay Johnson's versatile, Chase Claypool's going to be versatile too. I think they might say, we want a guy who specializes in something versus somebody who's just, 7 out of 10 everywhere.
You want the master of one instead of the jack of all trades. That's a good argument, Hunter. I like it.
Yeah, I'm just saying. When
not
you get
saying
down
I 100% agree with it, because that's not the way they keep offensive linemen, because they like jack of all trades on the offensive line.
That's why I led with, I don't even know if I believe that. I'm not sure yet. I haven't thought about it enough. I really haven't thought about it enough. But there's something there.
Yeah, there is. There definitely is something there. So we could move, since we've already decided, it seems like we have some sort of agreement here on the receivers, and obviously we got to see what Darbo and Anthony Johnson can put together here in the preseason. I'm always up for seeing anybody make plays, and was a big play. Lee Mays made the team one year from doing that, and the same thing with Nate Washington.
Yeah,
being workout heroes, and Nate Washington was an undrafted rookie free agent that year when he made the team, which was 2005, the first year that the Steelers went and got the ring, one for the ring or one for the thumb.
Yeah. And he stuck and contributed. He did. Really elevated, yeah.
And he ended up having a good career as well. So,
for sure.
So I like I say, I'm always excited to see somebody grow in the system and separate. Obviously, I don't want any more retreads. No, I don't want AB back. No, I don't want Martavis Bryant back. Everybody's seeing this. I'm okay, Hunter. You can come against me, but I am done. I think he is a good receiver, but my problem was I never liked his hands. And he showed that he's got drop-itis when it wasn't Big Ben throwing it to him that one year.
It's fair. It's fair, man. See, I don't know. I just love Martavis for some reason. I always saw him as just such a talented receiver, such a dude who was going to just – I mean,
he's got the size-speed ratio off the charts. He's a spark guy. He's fast. He can jump. He can do everything. Great.
I got flamed every time I said this, and I understand why, but I stick to it regardless, is that AB and Martavis was like having Rice and Moss on the same team. And the skill sets that they brought, I'm not saying AB is Rice, and I'm not saying Martavis is Moss, but I'm saying that skill set and that ability to change the game in the ways that Rice and Moss did, they each had that ability. And, man, just having them both was so lethal. It's a shame. One of the great injustices of being a Steelers fan is not seeing them together more often, because that really, really could have been special.
Well, one good point, too, is kind of the decriminalizing of the cannabis for the players. It looks like it's not going to be as much of a point of emphasis as far as for punishment, and it's almost going to be like a slap on the wrist now, as opposed to losing seasons because you're deciding to take some cannabis for pain relief, which I think they should be taking over top of drugs anyway.
As it should be. Yes, agreed.
So, okay, moving on, we're going to go back to the Steeler Nation website, SteelerNation.com. We had one of our very own writers, Jordan DeFigio, and she was ranking the top 10 linebackers in Steelers history. And honestly, this is one of the most difficult things to do, I think. For anyone.
Good luck with that.
I know. So we roll over here to the screen. So she's ranking the top 10 linebackers in Steeler history. And I'm like, okay, I hope she at least stuck to outside linebackers or inside linebackers, but she did all of the linebackers, which makes it equally more difficult over the history. But we can still talk about it. These are always fun. We love lists. It's the off season. What the hell else are we going to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
So rolling down, number 10, she throws on a newcomer. TJ Watt was up for Defensive Player of the Year last year. I believe he's made 2 Pro Bowls.
Yeah.
2 now at this time.
Sounds right.
Yeah, but he's very, very impactful. 34 and a half sacks already in his 3 years with the team is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't argue with that pick.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, I will argue, but I honestly absolutely love TJ Watt. He's my favorite player on defense currently.
Sure.
Then Hilton. I'm a big Hilton guy too.
Nice. Nice.
Then she moved down, number 9, James Farrior. Loved James Farrior. Excellent pickup, and we robbed the Jets to pick him up. And he was nothing but a powerhouse in the center and just barely lost out to Ed Reed the 1 year for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep.
Another monster in the middle, and I think James Farrior is definitely deserving on being on a list like this, as well as Lawrence Timmons.
Yep.
Tomlin's first pick. Slow to start, but once he got in, he did nothing but make plays.
Yeah, and puke in Miami.
Well, honestly, after playing for the Steelers so long, if I had to play for Miami, I'd get sick too.
Hey, absolutely. You can't blame a guy.
And then going to one of who I thought was probably the most physically gifted linebacker I've ever seen put on a Steelers jersey, and that was Ryan Shazier.
Yeah,
that was a guy that I saw play. What was he playing? Inside linebacker, but it wasn't a 3-4. It's a 4-3, and he's still making tackles on both sidelines.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Shazier, nobody's going to argue with that pick. And the craziest thing about him that I feel like, I don't know if it gets lost or if people simply, look back and kind of look fondly on his career, but he was absolutely still getting better whenever the injury had. Like, that was the thing. He was never like Defensive Player of the Year candidate like TJ Watt, but he was getting to that point where you could see it every season, and his ability to just make impact splash plays. I mean, watch the wild card game against the Bengals. If you just
gosh.
If you just want to watch Ryan Shazier at his absolute peak, watch that.
Didn't he also force the fumble at the end on Hill to get the ball back after the interception?
Yeah, and not to mention that the Gio Bernard fumble, play, that shouldn't have been whistled dead.
That should have been a touchdown.
That was a touchdown.
Yes, it was. But I mean, they whistled him dead because he did knock him to next week. I mean, he definitely got, and that was the reason why Burfict intentionally headshot AB later in the game.
Sure.
So it was a tough turnaround, and tough for him also to lose his career playing the Bengals later on, albeit a freak occurrence. But we all do love and appreciate Ryan Shazier. We're glad he's still a part of the team. He's still trying to make all the linebackers better, and he's a huge story for anyone following what it is to persevere through being paralyzed, playing the sport you love.
It was incredible to see him around the locker room, man. When I did an article last year during the season talking to various linebackers, Devin Bush among them, about the impact Shazier, even Keith Butler, I asked about him. And the way they talk about him and the impact he has on the team while still coaching is amazing. They're always so quick to talk about his mind. And I truly think that's what separated Shazier, which is crazy because this is a guy who the video – I posted this on Twitter a while back. I found it. I remembered it was on, I think, Vince Williams' Instagram at the time. It was a foot race between Shazier, Marcus Wheaton, AB, and one more receiver. I can't remember the fourth receiver, but Shazier won the race. Like, he was that fast.
Dude, yeah.
He was just that unbelievable as a linebacker. And so to say that his mind was his best attribute is truly saying something, because his physical attributes were completely off the charts.
And we'll see how number 6 was. One of my all-time favorite players.
Yeah.
Avoid Greg Lloyd. That guy was just the absolute definition of intimidation in the late 80s, early 90s Steelers, and just locked down that right outside linebacker spot.
Beast. They didn't hire him for his disposition, right?
No, they didn't. That's a great T-shirt. Number 5. Now, here's Kevin Green. Now, that as far as for all of the Steelers linebackers, I thought, obviously a Hall of Famer, obviously deserving, but played 3 years with the Steelers. Yeah. Still had some good impact during those 3 years. But to me, this was one of the, toughest ones for me to argue for.
I get that. I definitely get that, because he was there for such a short period of time. But man, you touched on it there.
He just barely beat Watt for his first 3 years in sacks.
That's amazing. Actually, that's amazing.
See that? Because like one of Watt's sacks years was a rookie season.
True.
And he was at 34.5 sack, 1 sack behind Hall of Famer Kevin Green in the peak of his career. So that's a really interesting thing to compare just there.
That is funny to look at it that way. Kevin Green's career for sure, like one of the
best
phenomenal pass rushers of to all time. Plus he had the hair. Come on, Stryker. You know the hair matters. He had the hair.
He did.
I would definitely, to be fair, I would definitely flip Green and Lloyd here for sure. For sure.
Yes, I would too. There's no doubt.
Come on, Jordan.
On my list, Greg Lloyd at the lowest would probably be 4, but we'll see who 4 is.
We'll see.
Joey Porter.
I was going to say, I have a feeling it's another outside linebacker.
Another outside line, but I did love Joey Porter, and Joey Porter also, I think, gave you a little bit of extra value off the field as a leader to get the team to rally behind him. They shot me in Denver.
They shot him in Denver. They shot
me in Denver. So they went into Denver and they took over in that AFC Championship game.
He ruined Jeremy Stevens' career just by talking about him.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah. You said it. I mean, him fighting the entire Cleveland Browns team before the game just to get everybody fired up. I mean, was it. And he still has done that as a coach. Speaking of that Bengals wildcard game, he still has the gift of getting the other team riled up for no reason.
Getting under skin.
Truly, there's something to be said for that, man. One thing working against Joey, just like Kevin Green, is that he wasn't in Pittsburgh forever and definitely had his best years elsewhere. I mean, Joey
he had some phenomenal years. Yeah. He had some phenomenal years in Miami. That 17 sack season down there in Miami too. I mean, exactly. I think he has the potential of making the Hall of Fame. And
I can see it.
He may be an outside shot at it, but he's got the numbers, he's got the sacks, he's got the production, he's got the Super Bowl ring. So, there's a chance that we might see Joey put on the gold jacket one of these days.
Yeah. And the thing with him that, we definitely touched on it, but that leadership factor that he brought, you cannot discredit that at all. That's huge. That's part of the Joey Porter story.
Yeah. Now, as far as the top 3, I cannot argue with Jordan at all. I thought she was spot on these. This is probably my number 3 all time as well, is James Harrison. Phenomenal. I mean, look at the years he stayed with the Steelers as an undrafted rookie free agent, bouncing on and off the roster. Was with the Ravens for a bit. We picked him back up after the Ravens cut him, and then he proceeded to pile drive a Cleveland Browns fan and high jump over LaDainian Tomlinson on an interception return before he was a starter.
Yeah.
And this is the 05 season. So once they got rid of Joey Porter following the 06 season, he was locked in by 08. He was Defensive Player of the Year, and the guy was an absolute monster. And you see he has the longest play in Super Bowl history.
That matters a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I think James Harrison is a Hall of Famer. The thing that's going to keep him out is the fact that he can't freaking stand Roger Goodell. A lot of fans can't stand him either, but I mean, he definitely made it his point to say, Roger, you are wrong, when they started levying hefty fines on defensive players for making hits.
For sure. He was a throwback player in that regard. Like you said, everybody knows who the next 2 guys are going to be. I haven't even seen the list yet, but I know who the next 2 guys are going to be.
Yeah.
And one of them very much embodies that James Harrison mentality.
Exactly.
We're here to play defense, man. We're here to hit the quarterback. We're here to make hard hitting plays, and we're not going to apologize for it after it happens, because that's what we're getting paid to do. So James Harrison, number 3, absolutely. I mean, Defensive Player of the Year. That says it all. You win that, you're in a different class.
That is true. Number 2, another Hall of Famer, Jack Ham out of Penn State.
Ooh.
Linebacker U. Oh, this one take you from a surprise.
Yes.
I know. We're going to have a good talk after this.
I thought they would be flipped.
Yeah. No, it's Linebacker U. They're going with Ham. Nice. And obviously he was the tackle machine. He did all the ugly stuff there in the center for the steel curtain. He brought everybody to the ground. Nobody could get past this guy. So, ending his career, a lot of forced fumbles, a lot of interceptions too. I mean, this 32 interceptions is a lot of interceptions for an inside linebacker. Actually, technically he was an outside linebacker.
He was. That's what sets him apart, though, man. His coverage was so far ahead of his time. Jack Ham is one linebacker who I truly feel could transition into the modern game.
Yeah.
Not miss a beat at all. He was so cerebral, so smart, never in the wrong spot, always making the right play. You think about the steel curtain defenses, those defenses of the 70s. Jack Ham is not the first guy you think of.
Yeah.
But man, you have a hard time convincing me that he wasn't the second best. Everybody knows Joe Green was the best.
Yeah.
He was the second best on that defense to me.
And now we have the number one linebacker, according to Jordan DeFigio, SteelerNation.com. And Steeler history, the number one linebacker, of course, is Jack Lambert.
Boom.
That's no question.
Come on.
That's a home run.
I love it. Jack Lambert, for sure. Like I said, I would flip Lambert and him, truly, just in terms of better linebacker. But
nice.
If you want to go all Joey Porter on it and include off the field intangibles, intimidation, what he represented for the team, Jack Lambert is the guy. He was the scariest guy on the defense.
Yep.
No doubt.
And
it looked like a vampire. No teeth. Just
and that kind of built onto that Steeler pride for having intimidating linebackers. You had Lambert, and then you went down through Lloyd, and you went down through Porter and Harrison, just to have these guys that. And now you're starting to get Watt doing it. I mean, Watt's doing it more with his play. He's not much of a talker. And really, Lambert wasn't a talker. He'd just do something if he saw something that he didn't like.
For sure. The Cliff Harris, the Super Bowl 10 moment where Cliff Harris patting Roy Jarrell on the head and Lambert throws him down. Oh, my goodness. That's one of the best moments in Steelers history, in my opinion. And it changes the game, truly. I mean, if you watch that game, the momentum shifted right then.
Yeah. Yeah, so to me, I think this is an interesting list. As Steeler fans, I know we can argue a lot of things, but there was one Steeler linebacker that I was disappointed was not on the top 10. And that was
I can guess. Can I guess?
Old school guy. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, never mind. You said old school.
I want to get to yours too.
Okay.
Because I'm sure you've got a good one too.
Sure.
But the one I'm going to touch base on is Andy Russell.
All right.
And
fair.
That guy was the lockdown linebacker, right before the Steelers became the powerhouse.
Yep.
I mean, he was steel. That man was Pittsburgh steel.
Absolutely.
And with his longevity being on the team, I'd have him above. That's why I'd have him above somebody like Kevin Green. It's why I'd have him above Watt right now. I think by the time Watts finishes his career, he might be a top 3. Who knows?
Sure.
I mean, this guy seems to want to be getting better and better and better every year, and he can kind of do everything as it is right now, but he's still trying to get better.
Yeah.
And I'm just really excited to see how he continues to grow and improve not only himself but the team in general.
For sure.
So,
I'm really big on Devin Bush too. I mean, you
to
can't
see
project
what
1 year in, but there's a chance. Absolutely, the talent's there.
Yeah. So who was the linebacker that Hunter Homistek was thinking about?
I thought you were going to go Levon Kirkland on me.
Yep, that's a good one as well.
Levon Kirkland for sure.
That's why I have a problem with like inside linebackers and outside linebackers because Levon, Captain Kirk, you've got to include as well.
Yeah, and there's another guy, and I only know of him honestly because I was on a Locked On Steelers podcast and did a little exercise kind of similar where we picked like our all-time Steelers linebackers. So I really dug into the history. In the 80s, Mike Merriweather.
He was a monster.
And 3-time All-Pro.
Yeah.
But for those Steelers teams that nobody cared about, so nobody's ever really heard of him. But man, Mike Merriweather's career absolutely worth looking into. You could easily make the case he deserves to be on that list. But I'll say, you normally see a top 10 list and like 4 of the picks you have big problems with, Jordan did a great job on that, man. That list is pretty bulletproof, honestly.
Yeah. It's a good list. Obviously we can argue up and down
the order, yeah.
The order, and we can say maybe this person or that person, but she's solid. We love having her on board, and she's one of our new up and coming writers, and we've got a bunch of them. We got a bunch of great writers that have added to the teams, and I got one more list I think that we should go through pretty quickly because it just came out this week, and it was from John Walker, and he ranked the top 10 cornerbacks all time on this. Now, to me, I think that this is an easier ranking just because there aren't as many great cornerbacks as there are great linebackers.
Sure.
I mean,
I agree.
Look at us. We can argue down to 15, 16, 17 on this.
Absolutely. On linebackers.
And say any of them could have been top 10ers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll roll us over here to the top 10 cornerbacks by John Walker, SteelerNation.com. You can come on over the page. Make sure you jump on too. If you don't agree with these guys, make sure you comment and you give them hell. You let them know what you think.
Definitely. Now, what's the internet for if it's not to disagree with lists? I don't know. I
mean, during COVID, that's all I'm doing.
Right, exactly.
So we'll go to my screen here. Oh, wrong screen. I'll stop sharing the main screen and I'll start sharing the screen I want to share. All right. See, I'm running my own green room as well, guys. Sorry about that.
He does it all.
Here we go. Yep. Running the switcher, running everything. So number 10 on the list, Chad Scott, a guy who was on this the team for a very long time, just missed out on playing. His career was sandwiched between 2 Super Bowl appearances in 95 and 2005, but he was a solid cornerback, good defender, and was pretty much solid right off of the bat. And when he was drafted right out of Maryland.
Yeah, he was always good. Never great by my recollection, but always good. And a first-round pick, got a little extra heat because of that, if my recollection serves. Kind of had the Terrell Edmonds syndrome to a degree, where people hold that first-round grade over your head. And even though you're performing fine, maybe not lighting it up completely, but doing okay, they're always going to hold it against you to a degree here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's true. So,
but he did beat out Artie Burns for that 10 spot, though. So.
I don't think Artie Burns is in the top 50. Moving along. Number 9, Joe Hayden. Now, I thought this was I definitely agree. Joe Hayden is a top 10 Pittsburgh Steeler cornerback, hands down. Like, no question about it. Yep. I was surprised he was this low on the list.
I agree with you. I cannot believe he just popped up at number 9. In my head, I'm trying to put together the list in my head as I see it. 1, 2 are very easy. I think the order of 1, 2 is going to be fun for me to see.
1, 2, 3, actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 3, 2. Sorry.
Yeah. Man, it's up.
How could I forget? But yeah, Joe Hayden after that is on that next tier to me as far as being a Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
All pro consideration at times in his career. Steelers haven't had a ton of cornerbacks in that realm, so
no.
I could see. I'm anxious to see who's next.
Yeah, and honestly, I can see Joe Hayden moving his way up the spots in the years to come as well, as far as for Steeler Nation.
He's getting older, but he's not slowing down.
He's not. He's improved.
Who knows? Yeah, I mean, if he keeps doing what he's doing, there's no doubt he's going to work his way up.
And number 8 on the list is Big Play Willie Gay.
Yeah.
I loved him. I mean, that guy could just return touchdowns. He was kind of a lot of the times he came in as the extra corner, but then when he was actually brought in as the outside starter, he did a fine job. He left the team for a few years. Did he go to Arizona and then come back? It seems like everybody goes to Arizona and comes back.
That's what they do. Brian McFadden.
Brian McFadden definitely did that. That's what I was thinking about.
Yep. Yeah.
But wherever Willie Gay came, he came back and he had a lot of fun here in Pittsburgh. And
he was awesome. Meant a lot to the team. Obviously, they bring him back as an assistant coach. He means a lot to the organization and to the guys. So I get it. But right off, this just further confirms our point about Hayden. Man, I can't put Willie Gay above.
No, I can't. Yeah. When you see that juxtaposition, it's like, if we're going to amount of years played on the Steelers, we got to redo that linebacker list too. But
unless our writer here is really into the intangibles and kind of the leadership and everything that Willie Gay brought, I'll give him that. Give him that.
Okay. So rolling down, Deshae Townsend.
Okay.
1998 to 09. He had a long career. He was another one of those guys that was, for the longest time, just hanging on the roster as like that third cornerback that came in for 3 wide receiver sets. And then didn't really become the full-time starter until his last few years, one of them being a Super Bowl season.
Sure. He was another guy very much Chad Scottish to me in that you never remember him being elite, but you also never remember him making the huge costly mistakes. He was good. He was fine, and he was a vital piece, like you said, of those Super Bowl runs for sure. I'll never forget. I was at the Steelers-Cowboys game in Heinz Field where Deshae had the pick 6 at the end. So I'll never forget that. Yeah, Deshae had his moments for sure. I'm fine with him at number 7.
Yes, definitely fine with him on the list. Number 6. Here's a guy that a lot of Steeler fans might have forgotten.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
That's JT Thomas. He was solidly locking down the other side of the field for the Steeler curtain defense. Yeah. And another guy that puts up, great stats, but obviously for a defense that was that dominant with that many dominant players, not all of them can be alpha dogs. But J.T. Thomas was an excellent, excellent corner.
Yeah, I mean, geez, you saw how long it took Donnie Shell to get into the Hall of Fame because of how littered it already is with those 70s teams. Being J.T. Thomas opposite Mel Blount was even a worse situation as far as being overshadowed. But man, he absolutely deserves a spot on this list. I'm happy to see that he made it because he definitely doesn't get the credit he deserves. And just a tough dude. You talk about the 70s mentality. He brought it in full. Yeah,
definitely did. Number 5 on the list, Dwayne Woodruff in the middle years, the 80s into the 90s. Another one with
such a good pick.
Played with Mike Merriweather, played with back when they drafted well, I won't say his name because he'll be on the list later. But like you said, one of the forgotten Steelers cornerbacks of that era, and he was a good player on a bad team.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. He was incredible. Again, just like Mike Merriweather, I'm doubly glad I brought him up now because the listeners need to go look at Dwayne Woodruff as well from those same teams because they were the two guys who really stand out in that era who don't get any love at all. And as my ex-colleague at DK Pittsburgh Sports informed me, Chris Carter, Dwayne Woodruff is also a judge. So you want to talk about just super intelligent dude as well, who is just this interesting character outside of football. Dwayne Woodruff is kind of the man. Like if you look into this guy, you're gonna love him. You just are.
Wow. Yeah, because this is the era I grew up in. So this is when I started being a football player with, Jerry Olsowski playing there with Merriweather, and you had Abercrombie, and you had Mark Malone, and
very nice.
And Lewis Lips was actually the high point of those teams back then. But I mean, but definitely. I remember Dwayne playing some great defense because there were some good plays to celebrate with him when he was on the field.
Absolutely, man. So we've got 3 Hall of Famers, 1, 2, 3 for sure, and then 4 is obviously
4 is Ike Taylor. The only, honestly, one of the coolest, like cornerbacks to kind of come up through the system. Kind of got elevated, then dropped down a little bit because of Cowher, and then got pushed back up again. Because he kind of reacted to Cowher's statements to kind of make himself better. But he was a later round draft pick with all of the intangibles, super fast, great size, didn't have a lot of cornerback experience, but the Steelers decided to take a flyer on him to make him a project and turn him into a corner. And this is one of the last projects the Steelers have had that turned into a great corner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he worked out very well for them. And everybody will say, if Ike Taylor had hands, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. Right?
That's true.
Unfortunately true, I think, too, man. He was so good so often that he's underappreciated, I think, because a lot of people will remember Tim Tebow and Demaryius Thomas on him or kind of the downs.
Yeah.
But man, Ike Taylor was so vital to those teams in a time when you cannot forget how badly the Steelers needed help at cornerback. They did not have good secondaries. As good as the defenses were, their corners were very iffy. So to have Ike, a guy that you could just trust completely, was so huge during those years.
And he was the guy locking down the other team's number 1. And honestly, with as stony as his hands were in the regular season, for some reason in the playoff time, he became a different player. Big interception in that 05 Super Bowl to take a would-be points off of the board for Seattle when they were in the red zone. Run it back the other way, get clipped by Hasselback. And that was a big play. Then that's a big play that I remember from him. And there was also some other interceptions in other divisional games that were big parts of getting the Steelers past and into those other rounds. So he was kind of, it was like showed more of himself and really stepped up his game in the playoffs to actually catch the football.
Sure, man. There's something to be said for that. I mean, you can talk about the clutch gene or the clutch factor or however you want to put it. Ike had that and would step up when his team needed him. And one more thing, just shout out to Ike Taylor for being so personable and so good in his post-football career. He's done a really good job of staying involved with the Steelers community and fans, and always just nothing but compliments for the Rooney family and for the coaches he had there. I mean, he's just such a good Pittsburgh dude.
Swaggin'.
Yeah.
Number 3 on the list.
Yeah.
Number 3, Jack Butler.
Had to be Jack Butler.
You got to go to the old Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Jack Butler. Screaming in the back defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers of the 50s.
easily forgotten as well because of the time period he played in. But holy crap, guys, just go look at this dude's stats. This was a guy. When I was on, we were doing we did a linebacker draft. Like that's how I learned about Mike Merriweather. And we also did the secondary draft, and I snagged Jack Butler in that because holy crap.
Yeah.
Dude had 9 interceptions in 2 separate seasons, 10 interceptions in another season, and they only played 12 games.
12 games. Yep.
So, I know, right? Go
he has 52 interceptions in 9 12-game seasons.
Ridiculous.
That's insane.
That's absolutely that doesn't even make sense.
That's
now,
why
granted, quarterbacks could not throw the ball back then at all.
Yeah, they had a lot of Tebows back then.
Yeah, for sure. But Jack Butler, who else from that time period did that? Nobody. So he still stood out. Yeah.
Number 2 on the list. We know we're getting to the Steelers Hall of Famers now, guys. Who's it gonna be? Mel Blount. Oh, Hunter's grabbing his head. He says it's the wrong way around.
No, I agree. I just can't believe he went there. I agree, but I cannot believe they went with that.
Yeah, no, but I will discuss this too when we get to number 1. But let's talk about the Cowboy himself, Mel Blount, out there, the outlaw of the steel curtain defense.
Unreal. I'm still in shock, man. You gotta give me a second. No, I'm kidding. That's fantastic. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. You're splitting.
1 and 2. They could be interchangeable. We can argue for an hour on that. Just that point alone. But
it's very much Lambert versus Ham, which is funny that it comes down to that. Where you can't complain. You can't complain either way. Mel Blount literally changed the game, so he has that going for him. You can't. There's 0 bad words, and I've seen Mel Blount very recently last year, and the dude still looks like he could play.
Right. I mean, the guy doesn't age.
He truly doesn't age. I was terrified of him, honestly. Just passing him in the hall. I was like, don't hit me, Mr. Blount, please. No. Awesome guy. Awesome Steeler. One of the best cornerbacks to ever play the game. No questions.
And he changed the game. The Mel Blount rule. He hit players too hard, so they had to change the rule. He can't clutch and grab anymore. So what happened? He just continued to win Pro Bowls and become the defensive player of the year.
Good enough.
But number one cornerback of all time for the Pittsburgh Steelers is
gotta be
Rod Woodson.
Yep.
I'm with this 100%. Woodson is my all-time favorite player because I grew up in this era. Sure. He could do everything: punt return, kick return, shut down corner, came in on to be the wide receiver or even a slot back or a slap back position every once in a while, and just could do everything. He was a football player and excelled everywhere on the field.
Just an athlete. I mean, an Olympic level athlete, track and field as well. The dude, an insane football player and athlete, but kind of like Kevin Green, not nearly to that degree, but maybe had his best years elsewhere. So if you really wanted to split hairs with the list, I could see you saying, well, Well Blount was always a Steeler.
I could see that. And that could be.
And he certainly didn't go to the Ravens. He certainly didn't go to the Ravens and win a Super Bowl. So, but
I couldn't hold that against him, honestly.
I'm with you.
I actually worked for the Ravens back then. And I can't hold it against you, but I'm a Steeler fan.
No, I'm with you on Rod Woodson. One of the most talented football players ever, regardless of position.
Easily. Easily. And just
it
was and then later on in his career when he transitioned from being a corner to being a safety. Yep. And he excelled at being a safety. And that's when he won the Super Bowl with the Ravens. He was actually their starting free safety.
He could have played anything, man. He was just that kind of guy. He could have done whatever they needed. He was that good.
Yeah, he was. And he still, I think he has the all-time record for career interception returns for touchdowns.
Nice. I never knew that. That's awesome.
That was, I think it's it should say on one of these. What is it? Curious season the 10 times Pittsburgh. I saw it somewhere. It's one of his, I think it's interception returns for touchdowns. He has the record for the NFL.
You could pretty much tell me any Rod Woodson fact and I would buy it.
Because I know it's not total. I think total's Dion because he had kick and punt returns. But Rod also had kick and punt returns as well, just not as many as Dion.
Sure.
Dion was a superior returner, but not a superior corner and all-around corner in my eye. He was a great shutdown corner against the pass, but couldn't tackle worth a damn.
Yeah. For sure.
Shied away from tackling. But
that wouldn't fly in Pittsburgh.
No, Rob would knock you into next week.
Absolutely.
So that was a fun list. So, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about Steeler-wise today. other than, the one thing I wanted to show you was the Steeler Nation website. We have new T-shirt designs.
Nice.
And I just think they're super cool. I'm like super into them, and I want to show them to you so we can kind of go over them a little bit.
Nice. Let me check those.
And so we can show all of Steeler Nation. So Steeler Nation, you looking for gifts and stuff, come over to the SteelerNation.com gear page and check us out, because right here we've got our new designs for our T-shirts. And we've gotten to more like fan-oriented designs, which I think is always the way to go. I mean, obviously, I'm rocking my Steeler Nation shirt as always, and I'll continue to do that. But we've got our Nation logo now with a 6-pack with Super Bowl trophies. I mean, that's money ball.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yep. As well as Steeler Nation established 1933 classic. Yep. Got it. That's just a classic design. Champions is probably my all-time favorite.
Love it.
Because to spell yins with Y-I-N-Z is just genius. We got some great guys here. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, guys. Thanks, team. All the design team kicking some butt. And koozies, I'm a big koozie guy. Are you a koozie guy?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm going to get one of those as soon as we hang up.
Awesome. Yeah, because that's what I'm going to be blowing some money. I think the first 3 T-shirts are definites for me. The Steeler Nation, the 6-pack's
great, but it's going to be a vintage shirt after this year.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it'll go with my beer drinking for one more year. Then we got the defense for Steeler Nation.
Nice.
Big fans of defense, and the Made in Pittsburgh.
Like that.
With the hypocycloids on there, and the Pittsburgh fonts with the stencil. I like that too. And then these are some cool ones too. Now you got this.
Gotta leave. I gotta leave.
The terrible towel shirt, and then you got the Oh Mama shirt. Now it took me a while to figure this one out. It comes from the great Steelers song that's played for Renegade. Oh mama, hey, how to hold it, how. See, I don't even. I've heard that song a billion times. I still don't know what they're saying past "Oh Mama."
That's because it's not a good song, Stryker. That's why you don't know the words. It's not good.
And I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and Hunter actually, like, we can get into talking about this just a little bit, because Hunter posted on his Twitter earlier this week something specific about Renegade, and I'll let you set that up, Hunter.
It's just not a good song, guys. Listen, I understand the appeal. I get it. My point is this. The Steelers need to stop late in the 4th quarter. The screen goes black. TJ Watt's completely losing his mind down on the field. You could literally play the wheels on the bus in that situation, and every fan would lose their mind. You only lose your mind.
Especially if you still had Jerome Bettis on the team.
Right? You literally only lose your mind for Renegade because of the moment. The song does not make the moment. It is actually a trash song. You just admitted it. Nobody knows the words to that song, because I don't even think the dude sings.
Is out there singing out, say, "They found me."
You know the general melody.
Lemonade and something is behind me. Who knows?
Lemonade behind me. Yeah, that's definitely it. It's a trash song.
And I wrote him back on his Twitter, and I was like, Hunter, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I didn't know the song existed until the Steelers started playing it after
that says it all, man. That just says it all.
Dead serious. Like, the only Stick song I know was Mr. Roboto. That was it.
Yeah, nice. Well, Renegade is better than that, I will say.
Don't know.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, for me,
you're losing fans faster than me.
It's the comedic value of doing the Domo Origato, Mr. Roboto robot dance to it. So.
I will say,
for me, it's all about the comedy.
Yeah, that's fair. I will transition and say that terrible towel shirt is snazzy, man.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Bad-ass terrible towel shirt. But anybody who loves, and there's a ton of Steeler Nationers out there that do love the Oh Mama, so don't let us poop on your parade. Buy the Oh Mama shirt, buy the terrible towel waving shirt, the Made in Pittsburgh shirt, the defense shirt, the koozie, the champions, the Steeler Nation, and the 6-pack. And thanks a lot for at least showing us and checking out a little bit of the gear page, because we know we just had Father's Day. I'm getting my wife to actually grab me a couple more of those. Like, all my money that I'm making just basically goes to Steelers apparel, so I can wear it on these vidcasts.
It's a reasonable transition, my friend. That's a good way to spend your money.
It is. So everybody, hey, Hunter, anytime you and I get together, it's just two friends hanging out, having a blast, talking Steelers, and I could do this all night with you. So thanks again for joining us again.
Thanks for having me, dude. It was awesome to be back. The lists were great. Let's do some more lists next time. I'm a big list guy.
Nice, good, because the writers, I'm on the thread. They're putting together some lists. I think they're doing defensive linemen next. So I'll have you back on, and we'll talk about some more lists coming up here soon. And we'll crack some of we'll bust some of their chops too about how they ordered it and who they put on.
I eagerly await the top 10 quarterbacks.
Can we get past 4?
No, you can't, and it's going to be really fun.
We got 4 and then Duck Hodges. Okay. So Steeler fans, you've got to follow Hunter Homistek on his website, homistek.com. That's HOMISTEK.com. Check out all of his freelance writing. Check him out on Twitter. Check him out on it.
Oh, something changed on here. I just lost my mic.
Oh, no. We made it so far.
There it is. Oh, there it is. And we got the Instagram at Hunter A Homistek. That's HUNTER AHOMISTEK. And super fun. I follow my chop. I bust his chops all the time on Twitter as well. It's a lot of fun.
It's a good time. Yeah, come out, bust my chops. If you buy the Renegade, the Oh Mama shirt, try it on and tag me in it.
Yeah, take a picture and tag it. Yeah, and say you're wrong, Hunter. You're so wrong, man.
I accept this. I accept this burden. Let's do it.
Hey, Steeler fans, come on over to SteelerNation.com for the best football forum on the internet. Tweet us at SteelerNation. Instagram us at SteelerNation.com. Follow the podcast at _SN Steeler Nation. And follow me at SN Striker. That's Striker with a Y. Thanks for joining us on the SteelerNation.com podcast. I am your host, G.Stryker, with Hunter Homistek, rooting along with you as always. Go Steelers!